Well, hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Accidental Swingers podcast. I'm Myrina and I'm solo today. Excited to introduce you to my new friend and actually functional medicine doctor, Dr. Tenesha Wards. And we're going to be talking today about some of the issues and problems that I've been facing and struggling with. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about how I met Dr. Wards and how we started this process. But I'm so thrilled that she's here with us today, and I wanted to bring her on, and she agreed to come on. She and her husband are she's not only familiar with lifestyle patients, but she and her husband are in the lifestyle, and so it's been an amazing opportunity to have someone that understands the issues that I on my journey are going through from the same shoes, so to speak. So I'm so thrilled that you're here, Dr. Wards. But before we actually meet you, I wanted to give a little bit of a quick backstory about my issues and how we met, actually, and why we're doing this. So, my quick backstory: if you guys are finding this podcast or this YouTube video, not because of the Accidental Swingers podcast, but because of the title or the subject matter, I wanted to take a couple minutes to actually introduce myself and tell you my backstory. So, my name is Myrina, and together with my husband Tristan, we co-host the Accidental Swingers podcast. And that podcast, we've been a couple for about 34 years. And about 6 years ago, we decided to move from our monogamous marriage into an open relationship. So basically, we became swingers. The story is really funny. It was accidental, which is why we call ourselves the Accidental Swingers. And we talk about it on our podcast. So you can go and listen to it there if you want to hear about that story. But what we didn't know at the time when we started swinging and we started to open up our relationship, what we didn't realize was that the decision to do that was going to affect us so much more. It was so much more about our relationship than it was just about having sex with other people's spouses, so to speak. And so the journey itself has really strengthened our relationship, but it's also allowed my husband and myself to rediscover ourselves and our sexuality and our sensuality, at this ripe old age in our mid middle age. I think I talk about it. We started in lifestyle. I was in my late 40s, early 50s. And so that was 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, when you're in your late 40s, early 50s, your body changes a lot in 6 years at this time frame. So I kind of wrote down a little bit of my backstory so that I could be very clear and succinct with it. So I'm gonna actually read what I wrote down to explain where I am so that you guys can kind of understand what I'm going through and where I am in my life and my physical and mental health. So that was my backstory, and we been in the lifestyle for about 6 years, and the podcast chronicles our journey. And so, literally, quite literally, after our very orgasmic and off the chain start into the lifestyle, because I had totally rediscovered myself and my sexuality, as I said, my body, I realized, could do things that I didn't know that it could do before, because I'd been with one partner for many, many years. And so I had this new explosive reality of what my body could do. And it was amazing and it was wonderful. And then age kicked in, and I started going through the change that we ladies go through. When we were though in started in the lifestyle, back up a smidge, I was in my late 40s, and so I was still having periods. I was still reproductive as far as I knew. And so I said to my doctor at the time, my GY, my general practitioner, that I wanted to go on birth control because I was becoming sexually active. And even though I always played with condoms, I always played with partners with condoms, I didn't want to risk it. So I asked my doctor if I could go back on birth control at the age that I was, and we agreed that it would only be for a few years, and because there's health risks that you take by taking hormones that late and in that dosage. And so, but I decided that that was going to be something that I wanted to do. So I stayed on birth control actually for a couple of years. We did that until about 2022. So I went off birth control then. We agreed at that point in time that really, not only chronologically but metabolically, I'd probably gone through menopause at this point in time. So at this point in time, I'm 54. I think, 53 or 54. I'd had 2 children. All of those things, all signs led to, and blood work led to the fact that I probably had gone through menopause or was just on the tail end of going through menopause. So that there was no way that that had not happened. I also want to point out here, because this is all not physical, there are a lot of mental components to life and stress. And in 2021, my mom had moved down to Florida to live here after my father had passed away. So she had moved down here a couple years earlier, and in 2021, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, the first person in my family ever to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And she also fell and broke her knee so badly that she is now wheelchair bound. So that all happened also. Okay. So I'm trying to paint the picture for you guys to kind of see where my life was going. So my mom has now moved to town. I'm her main, not her main caregiver. She doesn't live with me, but I'm the person that takes care of her. I'm the oldest child. And so all of those things. And then my hormones are kicking in and kicking my ass. So, after being off birth control, things got worse. My mood and emotions were all over the place. I was unhappy in most everything, and my sex drive was tanking. It was all I could do to even force myself to go out to lifestyle parties, which was such a huge shift for where we were a couple of years earlier. It was so fun, and that was all we wanted to do. And I was really struggling. After a few months after being off of hormones, my GYN did say we could go on hormone pellets, and I was so excited. I'd heard so many amazing things, and these women would get their pellets, and it would be like the world had changed, and the clouds lifted, and the amazing music started. So I was so excited and ready. I was anxious and excited, and I said, "Yes, let's do it." And I got pellets, and nothing happened. And so it really didn't change anything that I noticed or was aware of. So, I was very sad that I had to continue to struggle and push on through and didn't quite get that amazing, euphoria that some of the other women had experienced with their pellet journey. And so about a year later, so it was about a year ago, that I confessed to our podcast listeners that I was really struggling mentally and physically. And although I was familiar with being sad and depressed and anxious, I think everybody knows those feelings at some point in your life. Um, I had not experienced clinical depression or anxiety like I have until now. That was very hard for me. And I've worked with people in this field, and I've been in this field for a really, really long time. So I really do understand the depths of what depression and anxiety can do. But until it hits you smack in the face, you really don't really understand. Like for the first time, I really felt like I do know what it feels like for people who don't want to get out of bed. Like I hadn't had that feeling before. And that started happening to me, and that's not me. And that made me very scared and very sad. And so back in June of 2023, if you guys ever want to listen to it, it's episode 46. It's called Overcoming Open Relationship Obstacles, Finding Balance in the Swinger and Hot Wife Lifestyle. Tristan and I speak very openly and honestly about what I was going through at that time and still going through now. But we really spoke about it, and we talked a lot about how the stress and the strain has put our marriage and our lifestyle, fun, and relationships kind of even on hold. But please go back. I don't want to go in too much into it now, but you guys can go back and listen to that episode. But I mentioned how hopeless and helpless I was feeling, and I knew I needed to do something, and I just wasn't sure what it was. Maybe did I need a different doctor? I'm a smart and educated woman, and I was very frustrated because I didn't even have an idea where to begin. I'd gone to my doctor and I'd gotten the information, and I was told pellets were going to be great, and they weren't. And my doctor was not helpful. She's like, "Well, we all go through stress. We're women. That's what we do." And she's a woman. And I was like, "Okay." And I walked out of her office going, "We'll be looking for a new doctor," because I just was so sad with that response. And I get it, but she's a GYN, that she was limited. So long story short, here I want to introduce now, I want to bring in Dr. Wards. We met Dr. Wards and her husband, her fabulous husband, by the way, a few months ago, a few months earlier after, in that year, last year, when we were traveling, and Dr. Wards had actually heard our podcast. She reached out and asked, and had a few suggestions. We're going to talk about that in a second, but let me first bring Dr. Tenesha Wards on. Thank you, Dr. Tenesha, for being here. I'm so excited. Thanks for listening to my little backstory.
Yeah, thank you for having me. As you know, I'm a big fan of your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. And so
So
let me
kind of excited to be on it right now.
I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so excited we got to do this. Let me introduce you guys all to Dr. Tenesha Wards and tell you about her fabulousness. Dr. Tenesha Wards is the founder of the Infinity Wellness Center in Austin, Texas, and the Energy Recovery System online functional medicine coaching program, and is a holistic doctor who concentrates on chronic fatigue, GI issues, women's hormone issues from pre and post menopause to infertility, fibromyalgia, headaches, burnout, and insomnia. She believes in the importance of treating the whole person, not just the symptoms. Thousands of women have found Dr. Ward's after not seeing results with traditional practitioners, cookie cutter programs, and expensive supplements. What? Does that sound anything like my backstory right there? Okay. Her holistic approach to wellness means she specializes in finding and correcting the core root cause to conditions like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, and fibromyalgia. Drawing from her personal struggles with Lyme disease, autoimmunity, and Epstein-Barr virus is where she finds the fuel to pursue her passion, helping people near and far. Again, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, absolutely.
And I am so excited to start this journey for myself, with you, and hopefully with anybody else that needs help and guidance and assistance. The reason I wanted to do this is why we basically started the podcast too. There are people that are out there that need help and direction, and I'm so glad that you decided to agreed to come on here with me and chronicle my journey as we go through this.